My name's Matt Short, and you're listening to How's That, the cricket podcast.
How's that? You messed about, I caught you out. How's that?
With me, Lily.
And me, Ollie.
So there's been quite a bit happening in the cricket world at the moment, hasn't there?
Yeah, there's been bits and pieces, aren't there?
Yeah, so should we just start off with the WBBL signings that have happened recently?
Yeah, let's do that first, and then we'll move on to the Com games that have happened. But we've had a fair few WBBL signings, and a lot that you're not very happy about, let's say.
Yeah, it's been a tricky day for me, but also a pretty exciting day for me. My emotions have been all over the place. So basically, I'll start off with Sarah Coit leaving the Strikers, which is one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever had to see, because she's been with us for so long and she's just been such a good player for the Strikers, and it's going to be so bad to watch her play against the Strikers in the upcoming season. I'm really not going to enjoy it, but I'm still going to support her and cheer her on either way, because, you know, I've been watching her for so long, so it's a bit annoying.
There's going to be mixed emotions when you see her in the red. Is it going to be one of those where it's like, okay, I want her to do X, Y, and Z, want her to be player of the match, but then want the Renegades to lose? Is that what it's kind of going to be like?
Yeah, it's going to be, I want her to do well, but still not take the team over the line. It's going to be very much that. Because, yeah, I'm obviously not a Renegades fan, but that one is a pretty... Yeah,
Elise Perry knows that all too well as well.
Yeah, she does. Elise Perry does know that. Now, next up is the Strikers news, which was really exciting. So Laura Wolvaert has re-signed with the Strikers, which I was very nervous about, because she's obviously shown how good she is through the World Cup. And I was thinking, oh no, someone else is going to take her. But it's okay, we've still got her. And to add to the international collection, we've also got Deandra Dottin, who has signed with the Strikers. I say me, you're not a Strikers fan, so it doesn't really bother you. But
to be fair,
the Strikers have got...
I'm a Manchester fan and a Thunder fan, so there is some elements of me being happy about this signing too. So even though I'm not a Strikers fan, to be collectively involved with the happiness of this signing, I'm happy to be involved, because I'm really glad to see her in the WBBL. And the one thing that I was sort of thinking when those signings broke, the pair of those broke, obviously in the men's Big Bash, that wouldn't happen. That couldn't be allowed to happen, because obviously with the draft that's going on, everything's going to change itself. So it's going to be interesting to see how those are juxtaposed between the men's and the women's, because obviously, you know, it's the women's Big Bash season now is like we've always had every single Big Bash. It's going to be interesting to see how that sort of changes in the men's competition, but more on that in a bit, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it does actually start pretty soon, doesn't it? The Big Bash draft. So we will talk more about that when it happens, really. But yeah, look, it's exciting to see those players signed with the Strikers. Should be good. And then for the Brisbane Heat, Zoe Cook, who plays for the Meteors, ACT Meteors, has signed, and Grace Parsons, who plays for Queensland, has also signed with the Brisbane Heat, which is good because Grace is one of those young upcoming players. So to see her be within that Brisbane Heat squad, whether she gets a game or not, it will be a really good experience for her. And Zoe Cook, I know she was in and around the squad, but to have her on a contract is really exciting, and it'll be good to see what she can do for the Heat.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Parsons one makes sense as well. Obviously, you know, you want local sides. If you're a Queenslander, you'll be buzzing with that sign, I suppose, because you want local players not only for your Big Bash club, but also for your state team as well to be promoted through the ranks, and that makes a lot of sense on both levels, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then the final one that happened today was Tennille Peschel, who has signed on for 2 more seasons for the Scorchers. So she didn't know where she was going for quite a bit of time, and neither did we when we interviewed her, but now she is back with the Scorchers, which is disappointing because I would have liked to see her in blue, but, you know, good on her for signing back with her home state. It makes sense. Previous signing news that we haven't mentioned, there has been some more signings throughout the sides. So Hayley Silverholmes, who debuted for the Sixers at a really young age. I think she was only like 15, 16 when she played her first game with them. She has moved over to the Hurricanes because she plays for the Tasmanian Tigers. And then Lizelle Lee moved from the Renegades to the Hurricanes. And then Pooja Vastrakar from India has joined the Brisbane Heat. So good to get the Indians back in the mix, seeing as they don't have their own tournament. So
Not yet.
That's
Hopefully
that.
soon. Hopefully soon.
but yeah, that is the WBBL signings up to date. Sad and exciting, very mixed emotions, honestly.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm just sitting in the corner waiting for the Stars to do something. Be that incoming or outgoings. I'm just sitting in the corner waiting for the Stars to get involved.
You look at all the images of all the signings and you just don't see green for such a long period of time.
No. If the Stars recruitment board can just get their skates on a little bit and give us Team Green fans something to smile about, would be nice. But of course, it's a busy job and not one that I'd want. So I'll leave them to it.
Yeah, well, look, obviously we'll keep everybody updated with more signings. Hopefully there's some more positive ones for both of us. Anyway, moving on. We have Commonwealth Games stuff, but we do not have to discuss much between you and I because we've been joined by 2 guests this week, well, 3 guests this week, haven't we?
Yeah, technically 3. Technically
3. Yeah. So we spoke to Polly and Richard, who are our good friends from the Naughty Child podcast, because they have been to most of the Commonwealth Games cricket matches in their home city of Birmingham. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring them on our podcast and have a chat to them about their experience at the games. So enjoy our conversation with Polly and Richard from the Naughty Child podcast. So, would you guys just like to start off by telling us a little bit about your whole experience with the Commonwealth Games? Because obviously it's in your home city and you went to the opening ceremony. So do you want to maybe start off with that and tell us what that was like?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I went to the rehearsal and then the actual thing, so I kind of got to see the 2 sides of it, so a little bit behind the scenes and stuff. But I kind of didn't really know what to expect. And I think, especially like growing up in Birmingham, I kind of had low standards for it. I don't know. I was just like, what are they actually going to do kind of about Birmingham? I know there's a lot of history of Birmingham, but I don't know how you put that into a show that's really good. But it was a really, really good show. And I think it represented Birmingham quite well. And it was also just quite a surreal experience, like especially at the end when all the fireworks were going off and stuff. I was like, this is kind of crazy. But no, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it was done really well. I guess what you want from a show like that is something which stamps identity on the games and links it to a place. And it did that really strongly. It was good fun. There were great visuals. There's always some sort of strange drama dance thing, which
There's a massive slug.
You're not quite sure what it really means, but you just kind of go with it. But actually, the really lovely bit was when the teams came in, and that's each one gets by region of the world. So I think Australia first.
Yeah, Australia. Oh.
Again, yeah. So just coming in. So 72 different countries or places which are represented, and that was amazing. Yeah, really. It was just really lovely the way it was done. So yeah, I didn't. Opening ceremony is not something I was thinking of buying tickets for, but we got complimentaries because Polly's mum, my wife Nicola, was singing in it and got some complimentaries. So we ended up going, and really pleased that I did.
Yeah.
Really pleased that I did.
I heard it was really expensive though. Would you have chose to go still if you hadn't have had the ticket?
Yeah, I think we got about £1,000 worth of complimentary tickets for the 4 of us to go. So yeah. Yeah, I think it was. Again, it's not the sort of thing I would ever think of going to normally. I'd much rather spend money going to the sport, but there you go.
That's fair enough. And so obviously you've been to the cricket games. Is it just the cricket that you've been to see, or have you seen anything else?
No, I went to the athletics on Friday night.
Okay.
So sang along to Advance Australia Fair a couple of times in the stadium. Those are the only 3 words I know to the anthem.
I'm sure we'll hear it again.
Oh, we are young and free. Does it say like that? Yeah, like they know old people in Australia. But Yeah, that was great, actually. Really enjoyed being at the Athletic Stadium. So saw some great events, 3,000 metre steeplechase for women, which is really exciting. And women's triple jump was excellent as well. We were right by the pit. So, yeah, I was really pleased to go and see that. But apart from that, it's been cricket. We saw Australia, India, which was great. I think up until the semi-finals, that was the best game we saw. India, Pakistan, which was just brilliant for atmosphere and participation in the crowd there and so on. And then we saw England, South Africa, England, New Zealand, and then both yesterday semi-finals. And then today the bronze medal match and the gold medal match.
So all the games have been held at Edgbaston. What's the turnover been there like, I guess? Does it affect the ground in any way? Because, this ground is being hammered and hammered and hammered by games after games. Has that changed anything in your mind in the way that games have probably resulted?
I don't think so. What they did is that there was in the cricket schedule, there was a blank day that happened twice. And in that day, they prepared a new pitch. So they used 3 pitches over the course of the games, and so there was a fresh pitch every 6 matches. So they've all played slightly differently. I mean, certainly the one yesterday seemed to favour batting a lot more than the previous one, where in fact the last day of the previous pitch there was totals of 70 odd, 50 odd. It was really low scoring. I think that was to do with the teams that were playing as much as anything else. But yeah, I mean, the venue has been absolutely brilliant, and the crowds have just grown and grown and grown as the tournament's got on. So, I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure yesterday must have been the day in Edgbaston's history with the most attendance, because there were 2 sold-out games back to back. So there must have been well over 40,000 people yesterday, which was absolutely amazing. Yeah, and loads of people, of course, who just have never been to a cricket game before are going because it's Commonwealth Games, or maybe they ticked a box on the form to say, I'll have anything. And that's just what they were allocated. And so it's really interesting, the conversations you hear in the ground, people working out what the score board means and things like that. But really excited to be there. And, the broader audience you can bring in, the better, really, if you want to grow the game.
Yeah, and I think big events like this are good at that, obviously bringing new fans to sport. How much do you think that this Commonwealth Games and this sort of tournament all in the one stadium will bring new fans to the sport, especially English fans?
I think it's a difficult one, because in one sense we think, oh, look, all these new people are coming to a game, but actually, will they stick around after this? And I think of an example, like when the Olympics are on, or even when the Commonwealth's are on, I've loved watching 3-on-3 basketball. But actually, once the Commonwealth Games is finished, I don't think I'm going to continue following it. I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to find tickets of where it's being played, because, I don't know, like, I just kind of watched it as a thing passing by, and it was great, but I don't think I'd do it again. So I think for a lot of cricket fans, that might be the same thing. But there will be a small percentage of them who really enjoyed it and will keep kind of following the game, or look out for tickets at Edgbaston. And hopefully that will mean that, for example, the women play more at Edgbaston, because for a lot of the players, it's their first time. But yeah, I don't know, it's an interesting one. I suppose the 100 might be a good kind of grasp of that, but because the Commonwealth Games and the 100 are completely separate events and the branding's so different, everything like that, I don't really understand how there's going to be like a direct correlation between the two, because at the Commonwealth Games, they can't promote the 100. So it's kind of up to people's own, I don't know, it's like up to them to look for it, really.
But the BBC can promote the 100, can't they? And are also doing the Commonwealth Games. So there can be a link there. And I think it's about, if you broaden the audience, then of course, if only 0.1% of your audience get into the sport as a result of watching it, well, if you broadcast live to 10 million people, then that's another 10,000 people getting into the sport as a result of it. So I think it's about broadening it. I think live TV coverage is absolutely key. So actually, it's a shame England are not in the final from our personal point of view, because that would have been live on BBC One, and several million people would have watched it live because it's England in a final. A bit like we did with the netballers 4 years ago when they beat Australia.
Of course, just on the actual cricket itself rather than the event, We spoke a little bit off air about the fact that the game is going to, or the third place game, the bronze medal game, if you will, is going to start at 7 p.m. Melbourne time, which is 10 a.m. in Birmingham, which we thought was rather strange. You know, it's a bit early to have a game go on, but how do you see that game progressing, especially with the fact that, you know, we've had multiple pitches, ground's been used quite a fair bit throughout the tournament. How do you see that first game and then leading on to the final? How do you see that, you know, happening?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the final will kind of be its kind of own separate thing. I think with the bronze medal match, it'll be interesting because of New Zealand's like turnaround, it has had to be so fast. But then also with the final, both of you are coming out with a medal, but with the bronze medal match, only one of you is. And obviously both teams are going to be really wanting that, and they're both going to be really disappointed from the semi-final loss. I think probably even more England, because New Zealand definitely stood less of a chance against Australia, who they did fight really hard, but I think England will be gutted that they lost out to India. So yeah, I think it could be, again, quite a high scoring game, especially because we're using the same pitch as yesterday, and that seemed to really favour the batters. So I think it'll be quite an exciting game. But yeah, I'm slightly worried that New Zealand are gonna fight too much, and then, you know, the host nation don't get a medal at the end of it.
It's the game nobody wants to play, really, isn't it? Because it's never your aim to get into the bronze medal match. It's your aim to get in the gold medal match. I guess what I would be tempted to do, as certainly management of New Zealand or England, is to change the team around. So, you know, there are 4 members of the England squad who've not had any game time at all throughout the game. So maybe actually look to bring them in, particularly because they won't be so emotionally and physically exhausted after yesterday's game. So, and also we'll have a point to prove. So I'd be tempted to bring those 4 in.
Well, 3.
3 actually. No, not Heather Knight, but those 3 in straight away, and just to try and freshen things up a bit. But it will be, I mean, for New Zealand, I just can't imagine what it's like, because they'll have got virtually no sleep.
Yeah.
It will be at the stadium for 8 in the morning. They'll be there.
Yeah, you were saying that they'd almost be on the way there now, which is quite interesting to sort of think about. But there's a lot of psychological things going against New Zealand here. Now, obviously, they've had the game that finished off today, local time. Today, Melbourne time, I should say. And then obviously on Friday, Melbourne time, which would have been Friday back home as well, I would assume. England obviously romped a victory over New Zealand, which was obviously only a couple of days ago. How do you reckon New Zealand will cope with, you know, the psychological, you know, knocks on them at the moment? Because there's obviously a couple of those. And do you think that can play to England's advantage?
Yeah, definitely. I think England have the upper hand in that sense. I think the game against New Zealand the other day was really key. And actually, you know, we were saying before, this could be a really close game. You know, New Zealand are playing really well at the moment, and they could really challenge England. And obviously it wasn't a challenge at all. So I think England kind of do have that confidence, but I don't think they can get too complacent, because they saw what New Zealand did yesterday. And I think if New Zealand do that to England, it will certainly challenge them. So I suppose it depends who bats first and stuff. But no, I do think England have the upper hand, just because I think, especially with New Zealand playing last night, it's still kind of a bit more fresh in their mind. They're probably quite tired, and I don't know. I suppose if stuff starts going wrong on the pitch for them, I think it could get to them a bit more than England, maybe.
Yeah, and the crowd is a big factor as well.
Yeah.
So there'll be loads of England fans in today.
And the big crowds, and very loud crowds as well.
Yeah. Whereas last night, everyone was supporting New Zealand under the anyone but Australia banner. But today it will be very much full of England fans, and England will want to do really well, to give something back to the fans. I think. So yeah, I think that there's a psychological edge there. But having said that, the New Zealand we saw thrashed by England was very different from the team that came out to play Australia yesterday. You know, they put on a really good show, and you know they weren't close to winning it. You know, Australia are just so clinical, aren't they? They just game management. You know, we'll just carry on batting the way we bat, and then 3 balls to go, we'll finish the game off, no problem. So there was no danger of New Zealand winning it really at any point yesterday, but they did put on quite a good show.
Yeah, I mean, the game obviously for England fans was probably just really disappointing, because they were going in as quite a favourite team, I'd say. Obviously, you know, Australia, but England had done really well in that series against South Africa and coming off loads of wins at the moment. So what do you make of that?
Well, it felt like we were never really challenged against South Africa. So we kind of had maybe a slightly overinflated idea of how good we were, because we just thrashed South Africa. And it felt, watching England play South Africa was like watching Australia play anyone else. You know, we just bullied them and won every game. And so actually the game against India was the first time we'd come up against a team that could really challenge us. So I think that was really important that we did that. And it was a strange game insofar as I was convinced England were going to win, really, until about the 18th over of our innings. So we were completely set for it. And then suddenly we had, you know, a couple of low scoring overs, and that was it. It was done. It was really strange. So I thought we were going to win, and I thought we were going to win. I think that's part of the emotions I have to deal with at the moment. And
it's all right.
Just because this is going to be fine. We're going to win. We're going to win, and then suddenly we didn't, and it was awful. And I think we think we know the moment when something big changed in that game.
Yeah.
And it was Capsey's run out.
I feel so bad when I say that, because I'm like, it's Alice Capsey, she's only 17, she's got black eye, but also, yeah, that was like a significant moment. And also, I think because the margins were so close, and if she'd had her bat the right way round, it would have been in.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating, but yeah, I think that was a massive turning point, because she was playing really well as usual. And then she got out, and suddenly you lose, you know, normally she would, you know, she's been out previously at 25 runs, 45 runs, over 50, and it's like she only got 13 or something. And okay, so that's, you know, 30 runs that's missing now, and who's going to make up for that? And I think obviously they've got other great batters, you know, Amy Jones, but Natseva came in, and I think that the issue with that is her strike rate was so low. Well, it wasn't particularly low, but it was below 100, and that's kind of not England's plan. And so I think if she had got to her 40 odd a bit quicker, then I think England could have been okay. But it was almost the same amount of balls to the same amount of runs. So
yeah, if you compare her innings with Jemima Rodriguez innings for India, that was the difference between the two teams, really, and just the strike rate and the way Jemima accelerated towards the end. So again, she won't run a ball for most of her innings, but then right at the end could accelerate, and that's what we were missing.
Well, I bet you guys are glad to see her back in that team, though, as well as it against England. I'm sure you're pretty happy to see her scoring, though.
Yeah, I mean, I said, oh, I've got a dilemma here. I really want Jemmy to play well, but I also really want England to win. But no, I think in the final, we'll see her smash it. She's going to do something amazing, and hopefully they'll be standing over the Aussies on the podium. That'll be great.
That would be great.
That is like my dream.
I haven't learned the words of the Indian anthem yet.
No, but I'm going to learn it.
It's interesting how you talk about the everyone but Australia sort of thing, because we've had that chat on this podcast. Because when I introduced myself on the podcast, I sort of said, you know, well, I'm kind of grown up in an everything but Australia sort of household. And Lily was like, you can't be doing that on an Australian-based podcast. So interesting to get that view.
They need to know, all you Australians out there need to know, the rest of the world really don't like you at
all. Unbelievable. So obviously, with all of us on here being England fans, and obviously being a home tournament for England, what do you think we'll take out of this, both on and off field, from an English cricket point of view?
Yeah, I think in terms of kind of the changes England have made, I think we can take that actually some of them have been really positive. But I think also the fact that people like Tammy Beaumont kind of, I suppose they still kind of have a place in the side, and actually the team aren't doing miracles without her. And I think obviously the idea was, okay, we need a team that can beat Australia, and this current team we've got haven't been able to. But I think it was quite a bold move of England to bring in people like Freya Kemp, who's still very young and hasn't even had that much experience of regional cricket, like probably about 2-3 months of it. And I think that's kind of something that England maybe need to look at. And obviously they are looking to the future and about young players coming through. but I think they kind of need to be careful about managing those players, I suppose. And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think there have been a lot of successes for England and positives, but then when they've, that's been against South Africa, who have got their own stuff going on. But when they've come up against India, they've struggled. And actually, the teams you want to beat are India, Australia. They're the teams that challenge us, and it's still, that formula is still not working.
Yeah, I think obviously we went to Australia in the winter and got thrashed. And so the question, I guess, for the English management is, do you pick the same team and do the same thing and expect a different result? And because the Commonwealth Games really was about putting a team together that could beat Australia. So it was taken for granted that we'd get to the final. No, we haven't. But how can we beat Australia? So it was looking at strike rate, it was looking at playing in a more aggressive way and with different personnel. So dropping Tammy Beaumont was part of that, which, again, you could argue for or against it still. But it is kind of symbolic of we're making a break with what was and going on to something slightly new. And I think you're not going in the course of 6 months to go from a team that gets thrashed in the Ashes to a team that can defeat Australia. You've got to have more of a sort of 4-year cycle plan to say that, maybe not even the Ashes next year, but maybe the next Commonwealth Games or the next Ashes in Australia will have a team which will be very different, which can challenge Australia. And that will involve promoting people who are currently teenagers into the team with the hope that in 4 years' time that they'll be ready to make England the most dominant side in the world. Now, it doesn't always work that way, and there are going to be people who fall by the wayside as in that process. But I think that's kind of what the process is that they're going through. And of course, it's to do with professionalisation of cricket as well, that there are these young professional cricketers like Alice Capsey coming through now, age 17, who actually they are the future. So they need challenging and developing and put into that place. And it feels like that's the process we're going through, and it might involve taking a step back before we go forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it has been like quite a talking point at the moment, hasn't it? And I guess they did do that, a little bit of a reshuffle within that South Africa series, and then a bit more of it here, seeing people like Freya Kemp come in, who, obviously me being from Australia, haven't heard too much of, seen her name, but wouldn't have ever seen her play. So to see her, get a couple of wickets like throughout most of the games has been pretty exciting. But who would you say has been your favourite young emerging player throughout this Commonwealth Games that you've been able to watch?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think my kind of biased hat says Issy Wong. I think especially because it's a home Commonwealth Games for her. I think something I've actually noticed about the crowd is a lot of people have shouted her name. A lot of people seem to kind of know about her. I think she's been really good. I think performance side, slightly less so. I think it would have been great if we could see her back. But, it's a shame. But I think she's been a really important part of the team. And she's one of those people, we say that similarly with Alice Capsey, actually, I can't imagine an England side without her now. And she feels like really, really part of this team. But yeah, the other person, Alice Capsey, I mean, she's been remarkable. I think just the way, especially like after she top-edged the ball into her eye in warm-up and just went out and got her half century, I thought that was just, like, every time she bats, it's such a mature innings and it's so like thought out, but also she's just so fearless and she doesn't care who's bowling you. She's going to hit you for 4. She's going to find a gap. And I've been really, really impressed with just her level of skill, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, Capsey for me is the standout. Issy Wong's an interesting one because she has big recognition potential. People do know who she is. But it feels like she's been quite underutilised. So several of the games she only bowled 2 of her 4 overs. She didn't get to bat at all, and she's the one who opens the batting for her regional side. So it felt a little bit like she's a bit underutilised. And when she did bowl, she went for 10 and over quite regularly as well. But again, that's been part of the strategy. She's high impact, high risk, but hopefully high reward as well. But yeah, I think the thing that strikes me about people like Kapsi and Wong is that they look like they belong straight away on that international scene, and that's partly to do with their own personality, but also I think they've been kind of prepared really, really well to go into that.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy Wong is, well, she's only just started making her debuts recently, but she went to New Zealand like a couple of years ago, it would have been now. So she's been in and around that team, and Alice Capsey, I'm sure, as well. So yeah, like, it's good to see them get their opportunities. And I know over here I've been super excited to see them all make their debuts and get all their hats. It's been pretty awesome to watch. But yeah, Alice Capsey, she just looks like, it's crazy to think she's younger than us, because the way she plays, she looks like quite old in a way, like in the nicest way possible. She looks like she's been doing it for so long, like you said. So yeah, that's been really good. But what are your predictions for the finals? What is your top 4 placings?
Yeah, so
you can be honest.
Kind of my automatic brain says, okay, Australia are going to win, but I just so badly want this for India. And I know India can do it. That's the thing. They've beaten Australia before, and they have so much fight. And I think now they've got through to I don't think they necessarily expected to get through to the final. I think maybe England are a bit too confident in that sense, but I think I think Australia are going to win, but in some ways I think India could just, if they get a really good start, then I think they could.
Australia are beatable. However, they always seem to find a way. And that's the key thing. And so, India had Australia 5 wickets down, 50 for 5 or whatever in that group game. And it looked like, well, this is it. That's the first time we'd ever seen Australia play. And it's like, they're rubbish. What's all this? But it doesn't matter whether it's the number 2, 3, 4 batter or the number 7, 8, 9 batter for Australia. They'll score runs, and they'll be difficult to get out. And they always seem to find a way. I think that the way India can do it is if some of their big players, Smriti Mandana, Shafali Verma, Jimmy Rodrigues, score hugely and go really big, and that will be the way to do it. And they're all capable of doing that. But it's just, can they do it on the day against that Australian bowling? The player of the tournament, in my mind, has been a South Australian called Talia McGrath. Just been amazing. And every game she's performed, usually bat and ball, and been absolutely brilliant. And, I think, a player like that will constantly make a difference for Australia. And so I think my mind says Australia gold, India silver, England bronze, New Zealand wooden spoon.
There you go. That's the predictions. But I mean, look, it is one of those things where I'd say the only Australian that I haven't seen bat much would be Darcy Brown. I've never, from Big Bash or WNCL, she's the one person who I don't think I've ever seen walk out in the middle, because she either hasn't been needed or, she hasn't played. So everyone else can bat, and I can guarantee that. Even Megan Shute can hit a couple of sixes over the ground, so we will see. But that is I can agree with you there. Ollie, what do you think? Do you agree with there?
I want to say England bronze just to be biased, so I'm gonna agree with that take. I don't see Australia losing, as much as it sounds robotic and monotonous and almost boring at this point with how good Australia are. I don't see Australia losing, and that's credit to them. So I reckon, I would like to be different, but I just can't see it. So it's a bit of a vanilla kind of call because everyone's making it, but I think it's a pretty obvious one in the end. Hopefully I'm proven wrong though.
Well, that's it. I mean, look, it would be good to see India and just someone take down Australia. At this point, even I'm just like, they're winning a bit too much.
Yeah, they're on the pedestal, aren't they? They need to be humbled.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's all the questions. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Really appreciate it.
So that was Polly and Richard from the Naughty Child podcast. Obviously great to have them on talking about the Commonwealth Games and all that kind of stuff. And the one thing that I took out of it was the predictions at the end, which we ended up getting horribly, horribly wrong. All of us, really, because we all predicted the same thing pretty much. And as such, we all got it wrong.
Yeah, we did. Because we were all just hoping for England to place. And unfortunately, they didn't. So obviously the top part was right, with Australia placing first, India taking the silver medal, and then New Zealand took bronze, and England wooden spoon, unfortunately.
I mean, technically fourth shouldn't really be the wooden spoon, but I just thought that, obviously Richard described it that way in the interview, so we'll run with it. But fourth's not that bad. Like for most nations coming into the tournament, right, they would have bitten your hand off at fourth. But I think for England, we expected more, didn't we? If we're being brutally honest, we expected more. Obviously, the way that we played in some of the earlier games in the tournament, we were, singing off the same hymn sheet, if you will. We were playing brilliant cricket, and it just didn't work out when it mattered most. And it's strange how tournaments like that, condensed tournaments like that, can work, because obviously it's a lot shorter time span than the World Cup, be it T20 or Women's World Cup, or even like a tour like we've had against South Africa recently. Because obviously all the games happen in such a short time span. We played New Zealand like 3 days before and absolutely walloped them, and then they returned serve by absolutely battering us in the semi-final. So I guess they're the last laugh, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's what was the most surprising, was that it was really just roles reversed in that second game from the first game. But it was just really disappointing, because obviously it being a home tournament and a home crowd, you really just wanted England to just do a bit better and take out the gold, because that would have just been so special. And like Polly mentioned, it would have brought so much more attention to the cricket if the home team did win. So that was disappointing. But were we surprised that Australia took out the gold?
No,
not
at all.
No, we weren't.
And obviously Australia had the most gold medals at the tournament as a whole, so that was just another one of those for, it was a great Commonwealth Games for them. I think England had 3 medals less in total, so obviously that really wasn't going to make much difference if we got bronze, because we had a lot more bronze and silvers than Australia did, but they had many, many more golds. But, it is what it is. In the grand scheme of things, World Cups mean more. Ashes series mean more. It's not the end of the world that we couldn't quite get over the line in a Commonwealth Games semi-final. And let's face it, it's been a success, I think, cricket at the Commonwealth Games. Let's say maybe in 4 years, we've got another chance to go at it again. It's slightly disappointing. I think that's all we can say about it. We can draw a line under it, move on, and then when we host the Commonwealth Games, when I say we, obviously regional Victoria, maybe we can go at it again and try and win something out here. But I think it would have been more special to win it at a home games.
Yeah, exactly. But, I'm sure they're going to take a lot from it and work on it to try and take it further in Victoria. But in saying that, there's been a bit of controversy with Tahlia McGrath, hasn't there?
There has been a little bit, which is very interesting. And I saw a tweet about this fact where someone was absolutely irate at the fact that Tahlia McGrath was able to play, and yet Novak Djokovic was not able to play tennis at the start of the year. Obviously, it was when we hosted the Australian Open. And obviously 2 different sports, 2 different time
completely
periods.
different reasons.
Yeah, correct. But I just saw the tweet and, just pondered over it for like a short time. But I don't think you can compare those two. It's just interesting to see. And obviously those games are played in different countries too. Of course, Australia were involved in both of them, but let's not forget that game was still played in Birmingham, where England have got different restrictions now to what we had then. So I don't think that's a fair call to make. But even still, the controversy. People can say what they want to say, and everyone's entitled to opinions. But what do you reckon?
I'm very opinionated on it, and I know people are probably going to disagree with me, and that's completely okay. But I think that it was fair that she played. I think at the start of the tournament, we knew that if anyone had a COVID case, they could still compete. Like, we knew that was a rule from the very beginning. And that could have been someone from England, that could have been someone from Sri Lanka, like, you know what I mean? Like, anybody could have had COVID and still played, and that would have been fine. But I think what I realised was it was a lot of Indian fans who were really unimpressed. And I'm like, what if it was the roles reversed? It would have been so different. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Indian fans would have been reacting the way they were if it was roles reversed.
Well, no, because
And-
it would have benefited them.
Well, exactly. So I really don't think it. I think everybody's like overplaying it a bit too much. Like, she had COVID, she was fine. Apparently, Harmanpreet Kaur made a statement saying that she was fine with it because she wasn't too ill. So I think it's fine. Like, you know, I know some people are upset about it, but she was taking the precautions she needed to. She sat away from them. She stood away from them while fielding. I don't see any issue personally, but I know a lot of people do. So yeah, that's my opinion.
I think obviously hindsight would help with something like this, because obviously if everybody tests positive from that game, be it India players, Australia players, whatever, if they'd all tested positive, there's an issue. The fact that they haven't done, I think signals that there isn't a problem, really.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go the other way when I said people are going to disagree. I thought you were going to say, no, she shouldn't have played, rule her out.
I thought
you were gonna go the other way.
Nah. I think it's fine. Like, I don't see any issue with it personally, but that's my opinion.
People
Don't
are
really
about
want to
to have
argue with people with it, to be honest, because I can't be bothered. So if you
enough.
have your opinion, you can keep it.
Note
But
to
I'm fine
self.
with that.
Note to self, don't argue with Lily Harvey on the Commonwealth Games, because she's not just going to entertain you. So there's your little note to self.
Yeah, but yeah, that is the Commonwealth Games stuff. And we also really thank Polly and Richard for jumping up at 7 a.m. in the morning to chat to us about that. We really appreciate your time. But now moving on, we have our second interview.
We certainly do. And another Strikers player is going to be on the How's That Cricket podcast in a couple of minutes' time for the rest of you. Obviously, we've already interviewed them. It's not live or anything like that. But following the success of the Jake Weatherald interview, we just thought, you know what, let's go and double dip. Matt Short is about to be heard through the airwaves for everyone listening, and we do hope you enjoy it, because just like Jake Weatherald, an absolute pleasure to interview, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was amazing. And another one of those players where you've seen him play for quite some time. So to be able to speak to him about his career and all he's done for the Strikers, and it's been really amazing. It was a pretty good one. Pretty good interview.
Certainly was. Now, just a quick mention on this one. I did have to leave this interview about halfway through. So if you hear Lily's voice for most of it, it's because for half of it, I wasn't there. I had another assignment to attend to, but I did ask a few questions, and obviously Lily did very well with the rest of the interview. Just thought we'd put the disclaimer out there. But without further ado, here is Adelaide Strikers superstar Matt Short.
Picked up, beautiful shot. First one tonight, it's an upper decker. Gee, that's a good shot from Matt Short.
Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. Could you just talk to us a little bit about where you are in the world at the moment and where you're at with your cricket?
Yep, no worries. First of all, thanks for having me. So I'm currently in Melbourne at the moment, about 2 months into pre-season with the Victorian state team. So just been pretty much all the fitness stuff and a fair bit of hitting balls and bowling balls at the moment. So obviously, I look outside now, it's pouring rain, so it's pretty dismal, here in Victoria at the moment. So yeah, that's me, just in pre-season at the moment.
Yeah, I was literally saying that off air myself, because I've just looked out the window and it's absolutely pelting it down. But what can you do? Not a lot. It's not cricket weather, this, is it?
That's it. No, well, it gets a little bit depressing sometimes when you start pre-season here in Melbourne, and you're indoors for a few months, and it gets a bit boring stuck inside.
Yeah, it must be a bit hard to kind of find that motivation to kind of get going when it's just really not that pleasant to to be outside or anything.
Yeah, a little bit. Especially when you look at your social media and stuff, and people are overseas in the UK and stuff, and they're going through a bit of a heat wave and stuff like that. You wish you were there, but no, obviously a very grateful position, and love every minute of pre-season, and to be around the boys, it's awesome.
No, that's good. So yeah, I guess it's the big build up to cricket season now, which is going to be very exciting, and there's all the things happening with all signings happening right now. So we'll get into Big Bash fun stuff a little bit later on. But could you just start off by going right back to the very beginning and just telling us a little bit about how you first started playing cricket?
Yeah, no worries. So I grew up in a country town called Ballarat. It's probably an hour and a half from the city of Melbourne. So I grew up with an older brother and a younger brother. So we pretty much, played all sports in the backyard and got pretty competitive, which is, always a good thing in the backyard there. So I guess my first game of cricket, my older brother Jake, he was the first one to start cricket, and I think I rocked up to one of his games in the morning, and I think they might have been 2 or 3 players short, and I just so happened to be there watching, and pretty much got the call up. They said, we're missing a couple of players, or they're late, or something like that, and I just so happened to be there and had a pair of whites in the back of the car, so chucked them on and had the runners on, and went out there and played a bit of cricket with the older brother. So that's sort of my memory of my first game of cricket, and pretty much from then on, I think I played maybe a couple more games filling in for that side, and then signed up again for the next year. I think in the under 12s, I think it was back then. So I probably started a little bit late. I think I was 12 or 13 when I started playing. So, that's probably my first memories of, my first game anyway.
Did you have any specific role models?
Definitely my old man. And I suppose, and mum as well, in a sense. I think they've been pretty supportive the whole way through. And, as I said earlier, we were playing all kinds of sports in the backyard. I started playing basketball and then footy and then cricket. So, they're always supportive of, I guess, whatever we want to do or whatever we want to play. They said go for it and, signed us up. And, very lucky to have the parents that I do now. And, very grateful for them.
You talked about your cricketing exploits in the backyard. Were there any cricketers that you tried to emulate? Were you ever imagine a situation saying, I've got to hit a 6 off last ball? Who would you be?
Yeah, it's a good one. I know we all tried to be sort of Brett Lee, steaming in off the long run. Be pretty intimidating. We didn't have a very big cricket pitch, but we had a long run up. So we tried to intimidate each other with the long run up and try and bowl as quick as we can. But in terms of batters, we didn't really try and be anyone. We were just trying to survive, I think. It was funny, our backyard sort of was a brick pavement, so there were cracks everywhere, and batting was probably the hardest I've ever faced. So, the ball was doing everything off all these cracks of the bricks and stuff like that. So, they're probably my memories of playing in the backyard.
So you're saying that the balls that you face in the backyard were the tougher of some of the ones like Rashid Khan in the nets or Ben Lachlan in the nets?
Yeah, I reckon. It was brutal. So we had the older brother and younger brother steaming in off the long run, and you just never knew what the ball was going to do off the bricks. So it was pretty tough.
Yeah, their words, not mine. So you'll have to talk with that up with them in strikers training when you see them next in a couple of months. But speaking of your brothers, we've spoken about Jake. You've also got Sam as well, who's played professional basketball in the NBL. Obviously, we've had brothers who've grown up playing the same sport, and you see so many in cricket with your Agars, your Wars, your Marshes, and you've got the Harris sisters playing cricket as well. Why do you think there was a decision, or what happened to make sure that there were different sports played between you and Sam?
It's a good question. I think, I remember sort of finishing basketball at a younger age. I think I might have finished there maybe when I was 14. I think I sort of had pretty bad heels and knees at the time, so it might have just been a little bit of an injury there. But I was pretty happy sort of playing footy and cricket. So I think, test my memory here, but when I was playing footy, I think basketball was sort of on the same day as well. So I think I remember playing footy early in the morning, and then you'd still have mud all over, and you'd have to quickly have a shower and get to basketball. So that was always pretty busy for mum and dad. So I think I sort of gave up basketball pretty early, and then sort of stuck with footy and cricket, obviously in the different seasons of the year. So I I think obviously Sam was obviously a lot more talented at basketball than I was, so he sort of stuck with it, and I went down the cricket path.
Yeah, and I just thought of this morning, just saying, having a look at the stories and whatnot. If you swap sports in a different universe, so that you played basketball, and you played cricket, who do you think would fare better out of the two?
Geez, I don't know. I've still got a little bit of height, so that might do me well in basketball, but I'm not as athletic as he is. But geez, a good question. He went all right in the backyard cricket, so yeah, maybe Sammy in cricket.
There you go. There might be a future after a basketball retirement. There may be a BBL contract there. Who knows?
That'd be good.
But you mentioned about still playing footy and cricket. So what made you want to go with cricket instead of football at that time?
So I played footy and cricket up until I guess I was sort of 17, 18. In year 12 at school. I think by then I sort of had a better pathway with the cricket in terms like I was playing for Victoria and even even Australia sort of in the underage stuff and the under 19s and whatnot. So I think the pathway for cricket was definitely a bit more promising. I played footy sort of at the under 18 TAC Cup level in Ballarat there. So again, like it was a pretty good stand, but again, like I wasn't really playing for Victoria or anything, Vic Country or whatnot in the footy. So I think cricket was definitely the one to that I've been playing at a high level, and obviously made the decision to. Well, I guess the cricket contract came up first when I was in school, so that was before the footy drafts and all that kind of stuff. So, looking back at it, I'm not really regretting anything at the moment. So, it's very, very happy to choose cricket.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I mean, obviously cricket is at this stage a bit more global than football, isn't it? So you've got a few more opportunities that would probably arise with cricket rather than footy. But you mentioned about the state contract coming up when you're in school. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was pretty tough. So, I think it was sort of the start of my year 12 year, where I got offered a rookie contract for Victoria. So I think at the time I was almost enjoying playing footy a bit more. I'd had a bit of team success in the previous year. I think it was 2012, where I won a couple of premierships with a couple of different teams. And, I was enjoying my time playing footy probably more than cricket at that stage. But I kind of knew deep down that choosing cricket would be the better pathway and I guess the more suited pathway, I think. But it was a tough first year. Obviously, trying to complete year 12 and then have all the trainings down here in Melbourne for my first year. So it was all a bit of a blur trying to keep up with schoolwork and obviously trying to keep up with all the training down here. So I suppose once I finished year 12, it was move straight down to Melbourne and get stuck in properly.
That's good that you didn't have it any earlier, so you could kind of just finish school and then begin your cricket properly.
Yeah.
Just to move on, obviously based in Victoria still, but you've probably more or maybe best known, especially to Lily and to a lot of T20 fans, with your exploits with the Strikers. Not to discredit any of the wonderful work you've done for Victoria, which is the better state, of course. But ahead of BBL 08, you signed with the Strikers. Why was that the move to move across from Victoria to South Australia, and how's the experience been?
Yeah, it was purely just for opportunity. I'd spent probably 3 or 4 years, I think, at the Renegades for I think six or 7 games. So I was always, well, not always, but I was in and out. I couldn't really cement my spot there, or didn't quite fit in to what they were sort of looking at, or their sort of squad fit out. So I thought I'd jump across to Adelaide. They were pretty keen to sign me, so I'm like, I may as well. And again, sort of, I think once I got across, I was, they didn't promise any games, but I knew I'd sort of fit in a bit better there and into their sort of squad. And I think the first few years didn't quite go to plan as much as I'd hoped, in terms of performance. But batting through the middle probably struggled there a little bit. But then I think, I sort of owe Adelaide a little bit, or a fair bit now, for sort of sticking with me, and signed on another couple of years, and got some better opportunities at the top of the order, and which is probably what suits me best. Sort of opening the batting, or in the top 3 or 4. So again, sort of owe Adelaide a bit for that, for sticking with me and giving me the opportunity at the top of the order. Which I think I've done pretty well at.
Yeah, and obviously the season just gone, BBL 11, you had an absolutely wonderful season, one of the best batters in the competition, 3rd leading run scorer, and then Strikers MVP as well. Do you think that switch to the top of the order really helped you flourish in that new position?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people say it's the easiest time to bat. The ball's nice and hard, and you've only got the 2 fielders out. So I remember sitting down before the Big Bash with my state coach and captain, Chris Rogers and Peter Hanscom. I think I'd struggled in the few games before the Big Bash for Victoria, and they just said, we sat down, had a coffee or whatever, and they just said, get to the Big Bash, back yourself. So I think I knew Alex Carey was going to play in some test matches that summer. So I thought with him gone, I'd have a chance at the top of the order. So they just said, back yourself, just go and see the ball and hit the ball. Don't think too much about it. So it's pretty much exactly what I did. I went out, opened the batting, and just played with freedom, and didn't really second guess myself. So just went out there, backed myself, and had fun while I did it.
And certainly it looks like it, because again, like we said, you had an absolutely wonderful season last year. But again, you've spoken about your commitments with Victoria. You've obviously still playing with Victoria at state level. Is it weird to play against your Victorian teammates in the Big Bash and vice versa? And is there a little bit of verbal aggro, if you will, in those sort of games?
It is quite weird. I guess growing up, I'd never really, moved clubs or changed teams or whatnot. So I guess the move from Victoria, I guess, over to South Australia in the Big Bash, it was a bit different. But there's always a few running jokes between a few of us boys, and when we're out there in the middle against each other. So it's always good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly. Who's the most interesting to play against? What's the most interesting encounter you've had with maybe a Victorian teammate, playing in the Big Bash, or if it be a South Australian teammate, maybe in a state tournament in a different state?
It's a tough question. I know. Well, me and Sammy Harper are very close. We've sort of grown up together, through the ranks. So, we've always, have a few jokes when we're out in the middle, and it's quite funny because he's obviously the wicket keeper for the Renegades, so he's always right there behind the stumps, always in your ear. He's always a good one to play against and with, obviously. But he's a good character, Sammy. You love playing with him.
Yeah, and to move on slightly, just to switch the subject, the one team that you have played for that we haven't really talked about was the Cricket Australia 11 against England's Ashes squad back in 2017, which hopefully that's the last we talk about that England Ashes summer, because that wasn't incredible for me. But you made your first-class century for that team. What were your memories of that day, and what was the experience like playing against top-level Test cricketers?
Yeah, obviously a great memory of mine. I just remember how hot it was, and we knew England were over for a long Ashes tour. So I think England batted first, and we ended up bowling them out for, I don't know what it was, maybe like 350 or something. And there's still maybe 2 or 3 days left, and we knew that they're in for the long summer. So we're like, let's just bat as long as we can and try and keep them out in the hot sun in Townsville. So out in the field. So I think me and Jason Sanger put on a few runs and kept them out there. So I guess the Aussie boys have probably got the Cricket Australia 11 to thank for that year. I think we sort of touched them up a little bit early in the tour. So obviously a great memory, and one I love looking back on.
Yeah, maybe not so for me, but we'll take your plaudits and move on, because you certainly had a good game, and England not a good summer. So probably maybe it is down to you.
Now, obviously, the Big Bash season is almost upon us, really. The draft is happening soon. So what do you make of that whole Big Bash draft?
To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of it. Obviously, it's good that you can sort of retain a player that it's been on your list, last year. So that's obviously a big one. If we want Rashid Khan back, I think we'd definitely snap him up again. But I suppose I think I saw, was it yesterday or today, that maybe 70 English players have nominated for the draft, and English players that have come to the Big Bash before. But there's a lot of sort of your average Joe Blows that play the county cricket and whatnot that no one's really heard of. And I know a lot of the senior players here in Australia that on a decent package at their clubs, but they've got these sort of not no-nos, but these players that no one's heard of in the draft, and can end up coming to Australia on more money or a better deal than what some really good players are on here. So I'm not too sure how long the draft will be around for, but there's definitely room for improvement, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, I guess we'll see how it goes. But if you had anyone who you would like to bring over in the draft, any international players, do you have any that you would like to join the Strikers?
I think Ben Stokes would be one at the moment. Bat and ball, he can do everything in the field, I suppose. But he'd be probably number one. But who else? Rishabh Pant. I know Indians aren't really coming over, so he'd be another one. Rishabh Pant. They're probably two that are up there.
Yeah, no, good choice. Now, do you have a favourite cricket memory just from any format, any team?
I think the Sheffield Shield final back in 2018 and 19. It was a pretty special one for me, especially. I think it took me a long few years to try and cement my spot into that side at the time. So it was just good to play most of the games that year, and to play in a winning final. It's definitely a memory that I'll never forget.
Yeah, and what are you most looking forward to about the upcoming Big Bash season?
Everyone just says it's the most fun time of the year. It's the middle of summer. There's a lot of travel, a lot of games. It's exciting. As I said, you get to travel around, pretty much the whole of Australia in 8 weeks. So, it's always a fun time of year. There's awesome crowds, especially at Adelaide Oval. It's just very entertaining, and a lot of the players love it.
Yeah, it must be so fun. I mean, I associate summer with cricket season and Big Bash season. So summer's not going to the beach for me. Summer is spending my time at Adelaide Oval. So, I think everyone's really looking forward to it. But you would have played in a couple of Adelaide Oval New Year's Eve games. So what's it like to kind of play in those games? And I know that it must be a lot more pressure than just a regular season game.
Yeah, you're right. They're always it's probably our biggest game for the year. It's awesome. It's always packed out. It's always, booming, like so loud. You walk out of the race and you're sort of seeing up in the stands, everyone's like, it's all full, and they got the fireworks going and all this kind of stuff. So they do a good job of it at Adelaide, that's for sure. It's just just an awesome night to be part of.
Does it make you have a bit more confidence, I guess, whether individually or as a team, knowing that everyone's on your side? Because obviously it is a big home game. No,
it does. It gives you great confidence. I think, I've definitely noticed the Adelaide crowd over the years. We love it. We love it, especially Adelaide Oval. Just come across the bridge from the city. yeah, it's awesome to play in front of. Yeah, and as I said before, the boys love it and get an extra spring in their step during the New Year's Eve game when it's a bit louder and fewer people. So yeah, we love it.
Yeah, no, that's good. It should be really exciting, and I'm sure everyone's looking forward to it. I know that's the one, the big one that everyone kind of marks in the calendar is the New Year's Eve Strikers game. So yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to that one. But do you have a favourite teammate that you've played with? Anyone over the years?
Oh, I mentioned him before. Yeah, it'd be Sammy Harper, I think. We're the same age, and we've sort of grown up together in like sort of all through the pathways. I think since under 15s, I think it is. So we've sort of shared very similar experiences in our past sort of growing up in cricket to now being teammates at Victoria. So yeah, he's probably one where I'm pretty feel closest to anyway, in a way.
Yeah, that's good. Now, what would you say are your goals for the near future? Like, what is kind of the next step to progress your cricket?
I'm not a huge goal setter. I try and keep things, pretty, I guess, in the moment, in the present, rather than sort of try and focus on something further down the track. But in saying that, obviously the goal, the main sort of goal is to play for Australia one day. But yeah, I'm not getting too carried away with that. It's more just trying to put performances on the board, today or, in round one or whatever. So, yeah, I guess just scoring runs, taking wickets, that's what's going to get you there. So yeah, that's probably my main focus at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So now just to finish off, I'd do some quick fire this or that questions, some cricket related, some not cricket related. So the first one is T20 or Test cricket?
Test cricket.
Okay, good choice. Morning or night?
Morning.
Okay, no, can't do mornings. Dogs or cats?
Definitely dogs.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have asked that one, obviously, with the
even though she's barking her head off outside.
Beach or backyard cricket?
Oh, grew up playing backyard cricket, but probably like the beach cricket better.
Fair enough. Now this one might be a bit here or there, but Adelaide Oval or MCG?
Adelaide Oval.
Good choice.
For sure.
That's the right answer. Yeah. Orange juice or apple juice?
Orange.
Yeah, good choice. Now, would you rather have legs as fingers or fingers as legs?
Maybe fingers as legs.
Yeah, fair enough.
Don't know
why. Pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
No.
Ooh,
no.
Interesting. What is your go-to pizza choice?
Or probably your meat lovers.
Okay, good choice. Would you rather keep your chocolate in the fridge or in the pantry?
I'm in the fridge.
Okay, yeah, good. I know that's an unpopular answer. That's what I'd go with. But yeah, no, that's all the questions today. Thank you, and all the best with all your upcoming cricket. Sure, I'll see you down at Adelaide Oval in the summer. So yeah, looking forward to it. And yeah, all the best, and thank you again.
No worries.
Picked up, beautiful shot. First one tonight. It's an upper decker. Gee, that's a good shot from Matt Short.
So that was the interview with Matt Short. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed doing it. It was quite a fun one. But in saying that, there was an interesting point that he actually spoke about that I wanted to touch on quickly with you, and that is the BBL draft. And I thought his response was really interesting because when I asked him what he thought of the BBL draft, obviously, as you would have heard, he said he wasn't a fan of it because of the amount of English players that have nominated to go over. So you obviously know the situation. What do you think of that and Matt Short's opinion?
I thought it was very refreshing to hear a different opinion to the one we heard from Jake Weatherald. Because obviously they're going to be playing on the same team this upcoming Big Bash. Like, they've been teammates for a few years. But it just shows that cricketers are human. Despite playing for the same team and batting for the same cause, they can have different opinions. And there are a lot of English players that are going to come over and maybe stunt the growth and the development of some Australian players who others feel may deserve it. But obviously, we've not had the Big Bash draft yet. We don't really know, who's going to be taken, who's going to be picked up, what teams they're going to be playing for. But I did like the fact that it wasn't such, robotic answer in a sense. I like that it was different.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was, like you said, it was good to have different perspectives, because especially when you ask the same question, sometimes obviously you can get very similar answers, but to have completely opposite answers, I think was really good and really interesting. So yeah, I just wanted to hear what you thought about that, really. So yeah, like we said, that was the interview with Matt Short. Really hope you enjoyed listening. Next week, we will be back with another guest. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at howzatTCP, or you can send us an email at howzatthecricketpodcast@gmail.com. But that is all from me this week.
Yeah, likewise, another good interview, another good episode. Roll on the next one.
How's that? You missed about